Welcome back to another episode of Moneybag Radio. Today I've got the OG and the legend, Ed Latimore. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Living life, living life. So, for all those people that I guess they've been living underneath a rock and they don't know who you are, could you tell us like a little bit of who you are, what got you to where you're at, and really just developed your character, for lack of better words?
Oh man, I wish I was famous enough to be like people, and only the people under a rock should know who I am or shouldn't know. Nah, man, but I guess my story kind of starts. We'll cut to
Mhm.
the post childhood part because there's a whole background there. But
Mhm.
I started boxing when I was 22, and boxing really was one of the best things I ever did with my life. And and along the way, I was struggling with some other things, mainly the alcoholism.
Mhm.
And then at 28, I got sober, turned pro, and re-enrolled in school, and I started my blog, all this at the same time.
Mhm.
And those led to, I was writing, growing my social media, fighting at the same time, still in school, doing
Mhm.
all of this at the same time, and really kind of growing my personality, and for lack of a better word, growing my brand.
Mhm.
And as that took off, as it has, then when I stopped fighting, I was able to go off and do other things and see the world, because I wasn't reliant on fighting for money. And there's no
Mhm.
money in fighting anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that's really kind of the background. And I've just been now producing content and writing on the internet,
Mhm.
and I guess along with that, I have some coaching programs that I do, mainly in two not kind of two very disparate areas.
Mhm.
One is dealing with people or helping people with addiction, whether that be substance or the pornography or any type of
Mhm.
addiction, really. And then the other kind is, social media, writing,
Yeah.
coaching, area that I think I'm really strong at and understand well. Which is what brought us together anyway. I was
Yeah.
listening to your interview with Life Math Money, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. I mean, I probably could dive a little deeper, but
Mhm.
but no, I was like, oh, this is he had some really good points and ideas, and I largely, if not completely, agree with what he was saying. I probably just would have went more in depth or said it differently.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, you and I kind of like obviously your blog is much more successful than mine, but like I started my first blog at like 2014 during like the Victor Pride Cernovich era of blogging, and built my thing up, and then I kind of went off and started down a completely different path. But I still have the blog. You, however, you kept putting out your blog articles, more and more blog articles, growing your social media. So for all the people that claim, because this kind of builds upon, I guess, the Life Math Money uh, podcast we did, for everybody that claims that blogging is dead, what would you say to that? Because obviously you're putting out blog articles and you're sitting out, you're doing all these big interviews, big talks, dropping all these products, you're killing it. So obviously you still see a reason to have a blog. So what can you say to those
Well,
people?
yeah. So people say blogging is dead because blogging is slow. It
Oh,
is much slower than a social media platform.
mm-hmm.
But the thing about writing an article, right? So before we even say writing an article, let's um let's talk about kind of what you get from social media. You put a post out, it goes
Mm-hmm.
out very quick. People see it. The half life of a tweet is like 18 to 24 minutes. And for the people who don't know what that is, that
Jeez.
is that is like all the engagement your tweet will get. You usually, unless it's viral, you usually have all that half of that engagement within the first half an hour, 18 to 24 minutes. Okay.
Jeez.
I think Instagram is a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's like almost 4 hours, but I can't be sure. But my point is that whenever you have a social media post, time is working against you.
Mm-hmm.
The longer it's on there, the less people see it. With a website, it is the complete opposite. When you put an article out, it will initially do almost nothing unless you share it. But it takes a while for the computer, the algorithm, to figure out what it is and show it to people. and the standard for creating an article is a lot higher. But if you hit all the boxes, you have a piece of content like for example, I have 182,000 followers on Twitter and like 65,000 on IG. So to make the numbers easy, I have will round down relatively significantly and say I have 200,000 followers on social media because I'm sure some of those overlap. My website, by comparison, does about 35,000 visitors per month. But I don't have to ever post anything on my site. Like if I just stopped posting, I might slip a little bit. But that's all SEO organically driven traffic. That's people looking for things that I wrote about. They find me, then they follow down the rabbit hole and they discover me, and then come follow me on other my social medias or buy my book or whatever. So a website is just different because it's taken me almost 10 years to get to that number, and now it's really growing. But it's solid too, and that's the other thing. I'm making arguments for blogging basically, but it's solid too. I mean, because tomorrow, maybe not. I'm sure it wouldn't be that sudden, but Twitter can do anything from shut down to change the algorithm to ban you. We've seen all these things happen, but your website exists as an entity on its own, and should a new social media platform pop up, the emails you've collected as a result of having that blog, you can just send people and go follow me here. Or when people discover you, you can just put that new icon up on your site and tell them to follow you there. It really is this kind of standalone mecha thing that that works differently than social media. Social media is a great tool. I have cut my teeth there. It's made me a decent amount of money, and I would be remiss to say that it is useless, but it's only one half of the puzzle. You know,
Right.
if you have both, then what you have, it is one. It's really hard to move me off my square if I take over a certain keyword or idea, because it gets reinforced. People come to my article, then they follow me, or people follow me and they discover my website, and then they're like, "Oh, this is here," and share, and all this stuff gets linked through, and that spreads the idea of Ed Latimore. Like I mean, I've done a lot of articles, interviews, done a lot of interviews, probably more interviews than someone of my level of fame necessitates. But a lot of that is because it's very easy to find out who I am and what I've done, and see I'm more than just a talking head on social media is a good way to put it. And that's the other thing a blog is. It's a very accessible, we'll call it proof of work, proof of concept. If I've got an art, if I've been writing about this stuff for years and it comes up in search engines, I probably have some authority on it. And that authority goes a long way in getting people to trust you, to buy your products. It makes it easier for people to find you, and then if they want to partner and work with you, it makes it easier. There are just so many benefits to having that, along with a strong social media presence.
Right. So something actually you told me ages ago, by this point, it's probably like 2018, 2019, was like, look at your blog as like a body of work. And I've leveraged that body of work to initially get me into the freelancing game. Like I used to write blog articles for people. I used to write adverts for people. I even started doing web design for a short amount of time. And that was all because I had a blog. And I really like, could you go into, for anybody that doesn't necessarily want to just monetize their blog, could you, from a body of work standpoint, could you talk on that a little bit more? Because that's super powerful for really anybody. Like if you want to do speeches, if you want to sell books, or in my case, if you want to be a freelancer and start getting clients.
Yeah. So a lot of people know who Dave Perel is, but a lot of people may not. But Dave Perel he runs Rite of Passage, this great writing cohort. Every launch they do about 1 million, and they run probably more than 1 million. But they've done it. They do like 2 or 3 cohorts per year, and he's a great writer, and he's got this great website and everything, right? But he's built his mailing list, and he's built kind of his clientele base because they found him because of the quality of the writing. He demonstrates an expertise. Okay,
Right.
if you've been talking about something, forget the SEO standpoint because it's weird. My website does a lot more traffic than David, but he has a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
But what he has is he's demonstrated a commitment over time, and
Right.
it's a demonstration of his thought process. And like the way I described it, it's this body of work. Because if you write about topics and you do them the justice they should get, you produce a piece of very useful content that just that exposes you to a lot of other people and forces that can work on your behalf. And it doesn't matter what you want to do. Just
Mm-hmm.
showing that you have done something for a while and it stands, people can look at it and see, and shows that you have really a proof of life, proof of concept. It works really well for you. You know, think of it this way: if you were like dating, or you're like out there looking for somebody to date, and they didn't have any social media presence whatsoever, we're at a point in the world where that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Red flag.
Yeah, you'd be like, okay, like it's one thing to not be active, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
like 30 and you don't have any social media presence, or even 25, right, in that range, it's like, why not? Now it's one thing if you have a different name and you have a connect for friends, but if you're like, oh, I just don't have it, I don't use any of them. I'm gonna be like, something is very off here.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, if you tell me that you can do X, Y, or Z, and you're the person to trust, and I should follow you and hire you, or bring you on to speak at my event, any number of things, and I go to look you up, and all I see are social media posts, I'm going to likely be a little questionable. I'm going to look at other people who might be worthwhile to hire, and if they have a website, it doesn't even have to be super like fleshed out and developed like mine. But if they have a website that's a euro with a few articles where I can get a feel for how they think and communicate, as opposed to these bites of social media that don't necessarily reward the clearest thought process, but the most
Right.
engaging one, and that doesn't always overlap, then you end up losing when this is something that you should just win at. There's no reason to not win here, or to at least try.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look at threads on Twitter. Threads are the big thing. I just did a workshop on threads, and they're great. But the next thing I say is, why not take that thread, flesh it out a little more, and turn it into a blog article?
Right.
Because now you've got Tom working on your side. Because once that tweet, that thread is seen, that's it. And it's only not only is that it, generally speaking, for the
Mm-hmm.
Twitter audience, it's only going to be seen by people on Twitter. Okay. And not
Right.
everyone is on Twitter. It's actually one of the smallest platforms. Okay. But if you put it on the internet, it starts gaining keywords and can be seen and discovered by a lot of other people. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you not take your ideas and make them? Because look, I put a lot of energy and effort into my ideas and my clarity. And I go, okay, more people need to be able to see and find this, because I'm not quite sure, because I'm at the stage, right, where I'm not I'm a lot more sure than I was even 6 months ago, how I'm going to really where I can win, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
know that having an audience and distribution, that makes it a lot easier no matter where I decide I want to win, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So having a mailing list and having a website, that makes it a lot easier, especially if the website that gets that gets 35,000 visitors a month. That's organic. That's before I share it on my social media. It's a pretty big deal.
That's massive. Yeah. So okay, I've got so many different topics we gotta
So
go
many
deep
different topics
into.
we got to go deep into.
Yeah. So to start off, how can somebody maximize? Because I know back in the day you weren't as crazy about threads, but I can tell that's changed. So, and obviously you can maximize it through turning it into a blog article. You can max it out by putting it as an email. That's something I do for clients of mine. But how can somebody, the average Twitter user, when I say average, this is an actual Twitter person, like this creating content, they have a brand. I'm not saying consumer. How can they maximize their tweet if it's only got like a 30-minute half-life? Something I do is I'll retweet it 2 or 3 times, like within a 48-hour period. That's what I do on a regular basis. And I'll even sometimes copy and paste that tweet, maybe rewrite it a little bit, and then I'll use it again. But like, because you're like the OG of Twitter, what is your point of view when it comes to maxing out your tweet?
So just make a lot of tweets. Like there's no other way. So okay, so like you said, the OG of Twitter. Let's talk about some significant changes that have occurred on Twitter over the past, since its existence that have really changed how things are done. And it's really only been 2 or 3. One, they let you get more characters. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
From 140 to 280. 2, now they use things used to be based you used to see your feed chronologically. Now it is based on kind of an SEO metric, which is what the words you're talking about, the relationships you have with people, and then what those people would like to see. Are you talking about? Those are kind of the 3 main points that go into all of this. And all social media platforms do this because social media algorithms tend to converge. What works on Instagram works on Twitter, works on Facebook, works on YouTube, etc. Right? Works on social search engines. Okay, and then the last big one is that Twitter acquired a service that specializes in like your newsletter and stuff. You get a newsletter and your mailing list. So they started to favor threads, and which makes sense is if you go on that first premise that all the social media algorithms converge. All right, because if you want people to stay, you got to figure out how to make them stay, and that's prioritizing longer content. So your threads or whatever. All right. So those are the 3 big changes. With that said, being prolific still makes at the end of the day is gold. I mean, if you're writing 10 tweets or if you're writing 100 tweets versus 10, you're probably going to see 10 times the impressions and likely 7 to 8 times the engagement. Okay. But if you want to maximize that what you do have, then a big thing you can do, and people miss this one all the time, is you got to start communicating with the people who comment. Reply to them. Because one of the ways the algorithm looks at you is it looks at the relationships you have. And it says, okay, you guys talk and have interacted, so they probably like your stuff. And it shows you're really active, So let's show your stuff to more people because you interacting, it keeps them on the platform longer. One of the things I like to say when it comes to growing on social media is that you got to put time in. I worked with a guy who just had bot schedule and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really going to cut it, because they're not going to let you work for free. That's how I phrase it. They're going to make sure you pay something. And since it's free, you want to pay with your time. Are you using a scheduling app, or are you out here writing? Are you interacting with people? Are you showing that you're using a platform so we can reward you? Instagram has come right out and said they do this. It's like the longer you use our features and your engagement goes up, right? And so it makes sense that the other social media platforms would take this approach. Facebook is now outright telling you too, which makes sense because Facebook is told or Instagram is owned by Facebook. I'll get a message that says you can boost the engagement and views of your post if you engage with people in the comments. I was like, well, it's straight up telling you, right? And so we have to assume Twitter is doing the same thing, and we know it is. So you got to be in there interacting with the people who comment. People get so caught up in the media part of social media, they forget about the social part. You don't just gonna come on here and put stuff out. It doesn't matter how good it is. Are you in there interacting? That's one of the reasons I spend so much time here just talking and interacting with people, because I know that's money in the bank.
Right.
And you got to make sure you monetize it so you're not, just being that guy who spends all his time on Twitter and you have to literally live in your mother's basement because you got evicted. But that's the game plan. That's the key. If you want to maximize each tweet, get in there and comment and reply to the comments because people are commenting. So it's a good thing. Let them know. Let people know you're in the game, man.
Okay, that's actually something I need to improve because something I tend to do is, and I'm not nowhere like close to your level of notifications, but for me, I'm just like, okay, heart, heart, okay, strong emoji, heart, heart, heart. That's something I need to improve on is actually replying to the people that reply to my tweets because like I have tried for you. I'm sure that you have to like filter it and you probably just sit down for like 10, 20 minutes, reply, reply,
Well,
reply.
I mean, my style of use is very unhealthy. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of the reasons why I had to figure out how to make money off this shit. So like,
Mhm.
like a lot of times I'll just I'll see how a piece is doing, or when I see something charming and comment. It doesn't have to take all day,
Yeah,
but you can't just put it on the back burner.
right.
That is if you want to put your stuff on a back burner and not interact with it, make sure you have a blog.
Mhm.
Like there's no way you like that. Everyone tries to get the best of everything, which is natural, but everything's got a trade off. If you don't want to
Yeah.
interact, you got to deal with time. If you don't want to deal with time, then you got to be in there putting the work in. If you don't want to put out multiple posts, then you got to go, put out a good, strong, well researched post on your website. So there's just
Right.
different approaches to this game,
Right.
but they all cost something, whether it
100%.
be money or time.
Oh yeah, I mean it goes back to that like obsession talk that it's a super popular, I guess, topic to talk about, but like you have to have that obsessive drive. So you have a much bigger account than most people, but you also have that obsessive drive to
Yeah.
actually figure out what's working. You see the data, you reply, you do all that stuff. So before we transition fully into like blogging, email lists, and all that, my last little question about Twitter would be how has your thought process on writing threads changed? Because I remember back in the day, you would hit me up and be
Ah.
like, "Yo, man, why are you putting out that thread? Just put it or turn that thing into like single tweets." And I'm like, "No, I've got to put out a thread." So, but now
Okay,
it seems
so
that Twitter is kind of transitioning. Yeah.
so one of the things that's changed, remember that last change, is that Twitter is now favoring long form content because now that's part of
Right.
their service package. And from what I understand, they're going to be experimenting even further with these things called notes.
Mhm.
Point is that long form content is now being favored by the algorithm. Okay,
Okay.
so there's that first and foremost, because and it makes sense when you think about it, as people spend time reading and continue to stay on the platform. So if you give them more to read, they're going to be more likely to stay.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is what really changed, and then it was just a matter of porting over my writing ideas to a thread like format. And I don't, I'm not the best, but I'm better than a lot of people at it because I understand what you need to do to keep someone reading down a page. And those are
Mhm.
skills that were honed from blog writing and copywriting. Which like,
Right.
and I don't even consider myself a copywriter. I'm just a writer who understands human incentives and how words
Mhm.
work. So
Right.
there are writers who just get their thoughts out there, and that's cool, and that's still writing. I am very aware that some words have a certain effect, and you have to choose your words depending on the effect you want to have. This is not an accident, right? This is how you
Yeah.
you create good, engaging writing. And some people will take it the other way, and it's just all engagement. I mean, look, nobody's going to say 50 Shades of Grey is a literary masterpiece, but it's a hell of an engaging piece of work because look at what it sold, the movies that it spawned, and the money it's made.
Mhm.
Okay. So when you separate those two things out, you end up with very few writers can do both. I would like to think I'm one of the guys because I try to be able to do both. And
Mhm.
I take the craft of writing seriously. To me, it's an important thing, to be able to express to get what's in here out there. And I do it for myself too, because sometimes my thoughts are all jumbled
Mhm.
and I have to organize them, and I organize them with writing, and it helps me learn, it helps me understand things.
Right.
It just so happens that text-based work happens to be really popular. If you can, so to grow on Twitter, I have to learn the engagement game. Or to write good copy, I got to learn the engagement game. But to make good
Mhm.
points and have a strong article, I also need to learn, the research game, and I got to put that in and put in, make it clear to people so people read it. I have to understand getting people to read down a page. If you can get
Mhm.
people to read to the end of your article, that's hella good. That's damn
Yeah.
good, and that increases the likelihood of them taking an action that you want them to take, whether that be to buy or subscribe or go to the next page. These are
Mhm.
all significant skills that are built up practicing writing.
Right. So What is the difference? Like for somebody that wants to get into blogging, or maybe they already have a blog, what is the difference between? Because I know Google's changed like dramatically. We've talked about other blogs in the past about how they kept trying to use the same style, and then the traffic just dropped. So for somebody that's looking to, if they have a blog, start turning it into a successful blog or jump into it, what are some of the building blocks? Like obviously, it's more than just sitting down and writing an article. There's editing, like how you style the article. There's SEO. Can you go kind of into the basics of that for people that are listening?
I'll give an overall top down
Mhm.
kind of look at this. You remember, some people won't be young, will be too young to remember this, but and then
Mhm.
I'll elaborate. We used to have to write essays in school. And the way we had to write those essays, we had that structured a certain way. We had to have our research. We had to cite
Mhm.
that we got it from, and all of that was good for that kind of writing. And you're like, oh, I hate this kind of writing. It's not fun or whatever, right? But here's the thing: look at the internet from Google's perspective or any search engine's perspective. What is it trying to do? When you go to the internet, you are asking a question. Google is trying to select the best answer for you. Otherwise,
Mhm.
they lose because they're incentivized by advertisement and everything like that. But what you want to be able to do is you want to make sure you answer the question the best way possible. Whatever that question is that you have formulated, that you are constructing your piece and response to. That's what we
Mhm.
typically think of as keyword research, right? Uh, that the question you're trying to answer. Now, the big things that changed in the Google algorithm is machine learning technology just got much better. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just so good. You don't have to stuff an article with what's an example? Okay, you don't have to, let's say, how to make a good cup of coffee. An old article would be like, here's how you make a good cup of coffee. You take these beans, these beans, these beans. And if you want to make a good cup of coffee, you have to also make sure you have this water.
Yeah.
Because that water definitely makes you, allows you to make a good cup of coffee. So you just keep stuffing that
Yeah.
keyword in naturally. And that's kind of how you played the game. But now
Mhm.
the algorithm is the machine learning is so good, it reads a piece and it can tell if you're speaking naturally, and it can tell by context what your article is about. So I can go and say, I love to start my day with a fresh cup of joe, and see, I don't have to say coffee because it knows what I'm talking about with that
Yeah.
string, because it's learned, it knows what I'm talking about, right? And then I can go on and say, I love the aroma, the texture, the flavors.
Mhm.
And, there are a lot of different methods to produce a top tier cup of coffee. But here are some of my favorites: French press. And then I go through drip, go
Yeah.
through espresso, go through. So now I'm being rewarded for talking about the topic as a whole, because the machine goes,
Mhm.
we're hitting the topic organically, and it can tell how it's written. All right. So that's one of the top down pieces. Stop this idea of keyword stuff and instead write an article that answers the
Okay.
question the best way. Then structure it very well, because the computer has to kind of know what the sections are about, and that's what headings do. So
Mhm.
heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, etc. Right? That's a great way to structure your piece. Now your headings have to make sense.
Right.
You read a heading, go through, and the computer can tell, and also, even if it couldn't, it's just going to look at the dwell time and the bounce rate on the article. It's going to see when people are leaving, when they stay,
Mhm.
based on what it thinks where they are, because of how long the article should be.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, all articles have to be a certain length. No, though Google will look at all the other articles ranking for that question you're trying to answer, which I think is a better way to phrase than keyword, and go, well, all of these guys are answering it in 2,000 words on average. Your piece is 400 words. We're going to check it out and see how people respond, but you're probably not doing a good job, or you might be doing a better job. And that's why, and these are the things you have to sort of think about when you look at the
Yeah.
trends, because all you're seeing is secondhand aggregation of data. Like when I look at the Ahrefs breakdown for a keyword, all I'm seeing is what's the top 10 now. Now they have a lot of tools to look at, but then I like to go in and see, okay, why is this one ranking and how long has it been up here? You can see that. Like, okay, it seems to favor people who ask this question seem to favor this type of response. Or here's a different way to look at it. And that's another thing that Google likes to do, is put up
Mhm.
different perspectives or angles or styles. But overall, the end goal is you have to answer the question. You have to
Yeah.
answer it well. When you think of it that way, then how you construct the blog changes. You're right, because
Mhm.
you're not just. And I talked about this in building social media accounts. It's not just a cathartic instrument. If you look at your blog as an instrument to impart information, then you can go, well, what information do I know? And then start constructing articles around that, because somebody will ask to find out. Like if I look at my top 10 articles, right? Over the last 7 days, I can just read off the headlines of what they are to you. How to quit as soon as it comes up. All right, it's up now. Top articles, right? How to quit porn. 9 lessons from living next to a crackhead. Why you have haters if you're an asshole. The red flags of men. How to be an attractive man. Signs of maturity. Signs you're addicted to porn. Do women care about money? I'm answering questions that people are coming to find. That's the if you do nothing else, make sure you think of your article is an answer to a question. And it doesn't have to be a profound question. It's just got to be an answer to one that people ask. And that's what we're figuring out in keyword research. How are people looking for this, and how often are they looking for it?
So, like, what thought process do you have whenever, because obviously you're answering a question, but like, what kind of thought process do you have whenever you're constructing headline? Like, for me, I still am kind of stuck in the how-to phase that used to be super popular. I'm sure it's still popular now. But also, you said something about like 9 ways to blah, 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 blah. So, like, what's your thought process whenever you just wrote an article, or maybe you make the headline first and then you write the article? I don't know. But like, what's your process?
Well, I want my headline to make it clear what I'm talking about. Because look, above all things, if you can be clear, you win the game. Clarity is like 101, 102. Don't worry about being clever, catchy, engaging. Be clear. Yeah, and clarity tends to be engaging as well, because if people come and they know what they're looking at, they're going to be much more likely to continue reading, not feel duped, or pass on it if it's not what they're about. Because the last thing you want, and you see this in copy metrics as well, the last thing you want is people coming and feeling like this is not for them, and so now your conversion rate tanks. And when it comes time to when it comes to just running a page, that's not that big of a deal if it's just copy, but it's a huge deal if you're trying to get your article ranked so people see it. So it's like a thread. If I make a thread and the headline, every 11 lessons I learned from the projects, and I start talking about prison, well, it's still engaging, but that's not what people read through for, and so they're going to feel deceived, and they're going to reflect that in the time they spend on my page. My page's bounce rate, etc.
Without giving out the exact secrets, like a huge thing whenever I was working back with Victor Pride in those days, he was very big on like actually researching articles and all of that. Like, so for anybody in like 2022, what type of research could they be doing to actually be creating content that people actually want, instead of just pulling it out of their ass? Oh yeah, I think people actually want or care about this. What are some of the steps they could do to actually do the proper research?
So one of the things that I like to say, I create content based on what I'm interested in, what I have an authority piece on. With that said, I'm interested in a lot of stuff, and I can take a lot of different angles on things. People underestimate how many different ways you can look at and talk about a subject. And so you want to, I'll just give you my kind of process for doing this. I think about something I want to write about, and then I go and type that in on Google, and I see what people have done, or how Google responds to my query, pretty much. And then I take that website and I plug it into Ahrefs, and I see what keywords that website is ranking for, that page, and I go, okay, this is what I can center my content around. And then from there, I dig in and get in the lab, and that's where my tools are and everything for creating a good piece of art content. The least of which is not up here what I know and how to create good content, but I use a lot of different tools to make sure that everything I create. There are no pages on my website that don't rank for keywords, right? It's just over time they're going to rank for more and more and more. And as I learn more and more about structure of my site, it's just going to get better and better and better. But that's my general process. I think about what I want to talk about, and then I go and see, how people are talking about it. Like, for example, somebody, I saw a post the other day. It got me thinking, people got to know how to find their tribe. Now, I've written articles about, how to find your friends, how to make friends as an adult, but I never wrote more in depth about this idea about building your tribe. So I went and looked. I just typed into Google how to find your tribe, and I seen what came up. I was like, okay, You got the same thought process. Then I took the article, I plugged it into Ahrefs, and I said, okay, here are some keywords I can hit. I have pretty good chance with the way my site is structured and set up. And now I'm at work in the lab with a pen and a pad, as they say.
Okay, so we've taken care of the market research side. Now, something that we've already covered is a blog is a perfect body of work. However, something else, and we kind of already touched on this, is it's also a great way to get people into your email list. This is something I've been pushing more and more people into as far as like getting into email copywriting from both a personal brand perspective, but also as offering a service. And your emails, like you're probably one of 3 people I actually read every newsletter. The way it's designed, it like spikes my dopamine every single time I open up your newsletter. So what are some things that people could do to maximize their email list, both from growing their email list to also like, and I'm telling you, like your email, I'm sure other people told you this, every time I open your newsletter, it's like an entire experience. It's not just oh, cool, an email from Ed Latimore, and then it's a text-based, like full-on experience from like the header, the images, everything you do. Font, it's like an entire experience. So what are some, I guess, tips you could give people?
So, because believe me, what you see is not cheap in terms of time or money.
Yeah.
So first off, there's like the general brand of my writing, and that I think every person's got to find their own voice, and that comes from writing and reading a lot and figuring out kind of what you want to express and what you talk about and what you know well. Okay, so that's one thing. The next thing is I went and I invested in my own custom font, and then I paid for it. Like it's not custom.
Oh,
like I'm sure someone else can get it, but our font, you can't just go select it. Like it is same with my header and logo. That was designed. Like all of this is designed to match me. I went through a long interview process, and my web guy, John Pearson, he came. He's also my marketing guy now, and we came up with this whole design and setup in terms of look and feel people get into it. And then when we add that template on in the ConvertKit. So that's when you open my newsletter, it doesn't look like I'm just typing. It's on something different completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Then it's just it's just keeping in theme with Ed Latimore. Like you'd be crazy if you open up an email from me and it was about crypto. I didn't sign. No, but I've left it open that I can talk about a variety of topics. So because I talk about those topics, people feel they just get something from it, and that also a lot of that is how I present myself. I think I've done an extraordinary job. If I can say so myself. I think I've done an extraordinary job of simultaneously representing someone who is relatable to people and who's also someone they can strive to learn from and become. And those two things are very hard to do, or not hard. They're almost diametrically opposed. It's very hard to be both. It's like if you relate to me, why would I want to be like you, and why would I want to be like you if you relate to me?
Yeah.
But I've done a good job of that, and I think that's because I try to. What I know, I don't talk about what I don't know. Like one of the things I'm sure people will see is how my content changes when I have kids. So,
yeah, for sure.
Because I'll have a new thing to talk about. I have a newer experience and a new perspective on life. You know what the second, overall, the biggest category on my website is?
What's that?
My stuff about relationships. And I'm not a dating guy. I just write about my experience being in a long relationship from my perspective on it. And that comes from all of the experiences I've had. And so I'm able to create these articles that people get a lot out of. It comes to relationships and dating and women. So I think you just got to be out there. You have to be experiencing life. And then whenever you're experiencing life, and this is not the technical stuff. The technical stuff, the header I have, and the font and the spacing, the template. So that's technical stuff you can like pick up anywhere, right? But the real game because my website, my email list was doing okay, fine even before I got that. That was just like an extra bump. The reason why it did even better, why it was always doing well, is because I'm taking my experiences and I'm deconstructing them and then them out for people. And I try to do that with as much skill as I can. And that means taking the craft writing seriously, developing that.
The part you said about being relatable, but also people are inspired, they want to be like you. That's something I try to do as well. Because like I learned quite a bit from you, like in the rise and everything. And I see that and I saw that. So for me, like I try to share problems, I try to share my pain, I try to share my relationship stuff, to share the travels that I'm doing. And I also sometimes do it in a way that it's also aspirational. And so like I don't sit there and talk about things that I'm not doing. And we were joking about this the other day. Some guy that works with me is like, bro, you could talk about so much more. And I'm like, no, but it's just not relatable. Like for me, I know, and I'm more and more becoming, I guess, more aware of it, but I know why people follow me. The more clarity I get on that, I just hone into those points. And sure, I talk about other stuff, but as long as I stay, I'll call it pillars of Dylan Madden. Same with you. As long as you stay on the pillars of Ed Latimore, people find that interesting. People want to be like you. People relate to you, so they want to learn and buy, etc. So for somebody that maybe and I already know your answer because we've known each other for so long, but for somebody still figuring out who they are and they want to create content, they actually are an authority to a few different things. How can they start synthesizing their story, really crafting who they are as a person, like their personality?
So I'll tell you a story to kind of reinforce what I'm going to say. When we were working to redesign the website into the entity that you see now, John wanted me to have 3 categories, and I was like, oh God, right? I write about so many different stuff. Eventually, we set it on 5. Now, if you look, I'm pretty sure there's like 11, and there's about to be 12. Because here's what you got to understand: when I started this website, it's edlatimore.com for a reason. I didn't name it boxing, I didn't name it chess, I didn't name it something. No, because it's whatever I want to write about, whenever I want to write about it. And I learned that lesson from doing other blogs in the past, narrations. I said, let me just name it me. So it's always my journey. I can talk about whatever I want. People are going to dig it. By doing that, I've given myself a lot of freedom to discuss whatever's important to me and to really dig and deep dive. Like right now, I'm really going on this kick about health, in particular, peptides, seed oils, the danger to those, get my vitamin D, all that, right? And so a lot of the articles are going to start reflecting that. I've never written about health or fitness before, but I'll just gradually start building an authority pillar there. And it's interesting to me. So the advice is to write what you know. Just write it. I would not worry too much about this idea of niching because I just think it's a bad idea. Unless you're building a company, then it serves you to do it there. But if you're going to be like, as James Clear says, a donkey, like like he says, unicorns are like a company that has a valuation of over a certain amount of money, and a donkey is a business of one that does over $1 million a year. And I think that's a pretty that's my goal. I think that's a fine goal, and not much more, because $1 million a year, I'm going to be very happy and very well fed and healthy and all right. But if your goal is to do something even remotely like that, even not in $1 million, even say 100,000, it's the difference is just scale. But how do we start initially with these? What's the initial thing to scale? Just yourself, just your thoughts, just what you put out there. I think you can do so much if you don't try to pigeonhole yourself and pigeonhole. But what that really requires, a bit of honesty, because you'll discover some things you just have a passing interest in, not really serious or deep. Certainly not deep enough to write articles about, because you realize that I hate this and I don't care. And then there's the other part where you got to have the courage to share. If you have the courage to share what you're talking about, what you're interested in, what you're doing, you can do well. You know what the biggest article on my site is? How to quit porn.
Really?
That was really important to me. They would buy a significant, not so much because the rest of my site has grown up, but it's still the biggest one. But for a while, it was performing every article on my site by like 2, almost 3 to 1. Okay. And that article is the result of me just being honest and talking about stuff. My stuff about sobriety has changed people's lives. Okay. But people have also found me about my stuff about math. And boxing. Just depends. Right. You know, what am I interested in? Because it's my body of work. Because here's the thing. Right now, I've had a few people tell me this. If I wanted to right now, I could realistically go out and get someone and work for somebody in their content creation department and command a decent salary as well. Now, whether I ever do something like that is a completely different story. But the main idea is that what I've demonstrated over these past 10 years is that I understand how to communicate, and communicate in a way that the internet favors, and so do people. because really all the internet's trying to do is match up to what people want. It's not like the algorithm, because it's in no company's interest to have the algorithm deliver the opposite of what people are looking for. That's why they spend so much time and money and energy into perfecting their algorithms, because those make or break. You want people to feel like their experience is seamless and they're getting exactly what they want. Okay. If you can do that, if you can learn to do that, and writing does that, you're going to be in good shape. But this all comes back down to, well, can you do it with what you care about, what you're interested in? What have you learned? What are you going to do? What are you going to take care of? How are you going to make people care? And look, even if that article on my site is the most popular article, it only does 1,000 visitors per day. Like, it's not like it's this King Kong song of the internet. Like, it's just it's just my most popular article.
Right. So for the people that like they're starting to create content, and this is not for the person does not have a blog, doesn't have a social media account. It's not for this person. It's for the guy that's already taking the time to put the content out there, but they're struggling to even get the attention, to get the engagement. What's some like simple advice you could give them? Like I know copywriting and all that type of stuff, but like how can they actually make people start caring about the story that they're sharing?
Well, make sure you share the story with the intent to teach something. Because if I just tell you, okay, one of my lots of popular articles on my site, 9 lessons from living next door, living with crackheads and next to crack dealers. Okay, by itself, that's funny, but does it teach anything?
Yeah.
Do people learn something from it? Do they come away going, wow, I didn't know that was a good experience? Or like whenever I share my article about working at the homeless shelter, people get a lot from that. And they think it's just really interesting. That's what you need to do, is you have to share with the intent to teach. Share with the intent to give insight on something that people didn't have before. If you do that, your work is always going to connect with someone. Inspiring, enlightening, educational, whatever.
Yeah, like on my end, because I've been on both ends of the spectrum where I had the story, but I didn't necessarily understand how to create the tangible value for people. So then some of the advice you gave me was like, Dylan, just super focus on what you're doing, build up a skill. And so I did. I focused on the skill aspect. I became an email copywriter, started like building up with the different clients that I have. Some of them, and like got really got really deep into that. And then what I found was then all of my content was just very value based, action oriented, and I kept having people like, bro, tell your story, and I was like, no, people don't care about that. But then it's like, well, that's what gets people to like actually relate and to care. So in my experience, it's been like a balancing game. Like you have to build the skill, you have to get the value, but you also have to have a story, because otherwise nobody really cares.
So okay, so what you're talking about, yeah, I mean it's everyone's kind of struggle, and I always say I'm severely under monetized, really fixing that over the rest of the year. But why do I say that? Because I put so much energy into telling my story, right? But even still, without all the energy, man, I'm just still done okay. Not as well as I think I'll do in the next year or two, but that's because my focus will have shifted to these things that I can use to generate revenue. But I say that to answer your question about the balancing act, you just get twice as much content. It takes twice as long, but it doesn't scale to being twice as popular. It scales asymmetrically. So, you end up 4 or 6 times more well known, which brings you that many more clients or whatever. People want to reach out and work with me, for example, my addiction stuff, because I told so many different stories about it. So now, without a commercial aspect, I mean, I have people all the time reach out about coaching for XYZ. Now, your business model should not certainly be, build it and they will come. I think that's a really bad idea. But I only tell this story to illustrate the power of telling a story. But also, you don't want to neglect the commercial side of things, because ultimately, like I would hate to be the most popular on food stamps. Like that's silly.
Yeah.
All right. So instead, you wanna make sure you have an eye for, You want to make sure you have an eye for business or a hand for
Hmm.
business, but you don't want to be so business obsessed that you miss an opportunity to grow. And this is only if you're doing this writing personal thing. Like obviously there are
Yeah.
different avenues and ways to go. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's my thought on that.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's something big that I teach people that go through like my various freelancing things. It's like you've got to build an actual personal brand. You have to actually put yourself out there. You're going to have opportunities coming to you. One, but then two, and this is something a lot of people like overthink. You actually have to be outreaching. So reaching out to guys or different brands offering your services. Otherwise, they're not going to know you even exist. And so you have to build your body of work. And speaking of body of work, let's transition kind of back into blogging because I know that's something you and I really wanted to talk about. Whenever you're writing, so let's combine Twitter, let's combine your blog, and let's combine your email list. Like, what is your thought process on leveraging all of that? Like, as of late, I've been really big on repurposing content. So, like, we're going to have this interview. I'm going to turn this into clips. Then I'm also going to turn them into shorts. Then I'm going to put that on Instagram. When it comes to my Twitter, this is what I've been doing for ages for clients.
Yeah.
Well, if one of my clients puts out a tweet or a thread, I'll turn that into an email. And I have unlimited access to creating emails off of those tweets. And I look for the tweets that get a lot of engagement because obviously people are interested in that. So what is kind of your process on like writing your emails? Are those like standalone or do you build that upon a tweet? Like what's your process on that?
Nah, man, I really a lot of times I'll just take a fresh idea and just create based on
Mm-hmm.
that. And then now I'm getting a little. No, I mean, if I'm being honest, I'll just tell you my strategy, and then you pick from it. What's really working well for me right now, Instagram
Mm-hmm.
is taking my tweets and putting them up, but organizing them in a way that they kind of make sense to come together. Or if it was a thread when I
Mm-hmm.
put out that thread. So that has done well for me there. So I'm in
Mm-hmm.
that case, I'm double dipping. I'm not even repurposing. I'm just taking one there. Now I'll write a new
Yeah.
caption and I'll do hashtag research, but this allows me to reach an audience on Instagram with the same
Mm-hmm.
content I've done on Twitter. When it comes to writing newsletters or blog posts, 95% of the time they're fresh ideas from scratch. I
Yeah.
don't do that. I just think differently when I create a tweet versus when I create an article or a newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make sense for me to try and extrapolate. But that's not always. Every now and then, I need to expand on this idea, and
Mm-hmm.
this is cool. But that's pretty much how it goes for me. I'm never out of ideas, man. Like but and part of that is because I've structured my life, even my leisure time is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of learning and putting new things in my brain and experiences. I'm always are figuring out just new parts of life. So I
Yeah.
always have a lot of raw material to work with. So I never feel myself taxed for it. And on top of that, I think I've done a pretty good job at honing the machine that does all this like up here. So I'm
Yeah.
able to take my experiences, break them down, my thoughts, break them down, or figure out how to teach something, work with something like that. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, there's always a way to improve, or rather, a way to be more efficient. But this is working for me right now.
Yeah.
I see guys do different things because I'm subscribed to a few newsletters because I like to like grab ideas. I'll
Mm-hmm.
see something I think might have some weight, but
Yeah.
other than that, I tend to step back and just create and have a good time.
Yeah, that's something that has, I guess, been powerful for me is I stopped trying to see like, okay, this guy claims this is the best way to do this. This guy claims this is the best way to do it. Instead, just finding what works best for me. And I maybe that comes with experience. Like for me, I had to actually put myself out there and start taking on clients and start traveling the world and start doing all that. And then I started building up my, you could say even self-esteem. Like I had low self-esteem for a while. So I started gaining more confidence, gaining more experience. And then I was like, oh, wait, just because he says it to do this way doesn't mean that it's 100% right. Maybe it's just right for him. So, for all the people that are watching, it really comes down to one, finding people that have the life that you want, such as like yourself, etc. They have the life that you want, they relate to some of your story, whatever. There's something that connects them to you. But then putting yourself out there and then starting to craft your own persona, your own routine, and not being scared to try new things. Like for me, this week I'm trying something brand new because I've been finding myself working not literally all day every day, but like 7 days a week. It's like just to this meeting, having a conversation with this person, doing this, boom, 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 constantly doing stuff. Something I'm literally doing this week is Monday through Thursday from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Those are my work hours. Like if something has to go down, goes down during that period. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or for me, just going out and learning, experiencing new things. We've also got a new vlog series we're constantly recording content for, so I can go out and do the recording. Because I've been finding myself as of late, I was like, man, I swear every time I knock my to-do list down, I've got like 30 different things added on top of that. So it's like, go, 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 go. And now I'm I want to grow this podcast. I personally wasn't crazy about doing podcasts in the beginning, but I genuinely enjoy doing them. And then also the vlog series, I want to grow that out. So for me, testing this new schedule, and I think it'll be better because like Friday, Saturday, Sunday can be for like admin related stuff, content creation, and something I need to get way better about. This is, I guess I got this from like my family. My family is very work ethic oriented with hardly any like leisure. I don't really do much as far as like from a free time perspective, like learning new languages, playing chess, I don't really do much of that. It's basically planning the next vlog, planning the next this, working with this client, Okay, how can we maximize what we're doing on this project that we're doing? And I'm starting, I think, to hit a slight wall. Have you ever hit that? Is something I really, really like about like your approach is you try to most enjoyment out of life as possible while balancing it with all this content creation. Yeah.
Well, I have a very clear why. At the very least, there are some things that I'm just not motivated by. Won't do anything for me. So I personally, and let's start with this. I personally believe that, I'm the most interesting person you're ever going to meet. Whether that's true or not, that's the belief that I operate on, and I always operate on that with everything I choose to do in my life. Okay? That means I'm not. I know you need a certain amount of money, and you should always aim to 20% a little higher than what you need. But like my goal, I could care less about being rich in the sense of like having like a crazy like a Lambo and flying private everywhere unless I have to or it's more accessible. I care about is being able to go and see things and do things I want to and be healthy and good relationships with people and to have my autonomy so I don't have to be stressed. Now that does mean making sure I make a certain amount of money, but it comes with the cost of doing business. I talk to my friends who have jobs. They're all paying a lot of them, and every now and then they'll say, and I'd love to do something like you're doing. You have your own thing, your own control. I'm like, yeah, but every day I got to make sure I do something because I got to make sure I put food on my table. And I don't say that like as a flex. I say that as like, when you work for somebody else, you have that cushion. You might not have as much freedom, but you have that cushion. You work for yourself. Yeah, you can. The heights you can soar to are incredible. You don't have a cushion. If something goes wrong, it's all on you. Okay, it just everything. Pros and cons to everything. But for me, for what's most important to me, freedom, ability to experience the world and connect with good people. I understand you don't need much money to do that because I grew up poor as hell, man. Like the only thing I couldn't do that I do now. I mean, I couldn't afford the type of food I like to eat. That's probably important. Or live in the neighborhood that I like to live in. But that's not that much more expensive. I'm around a bunch of lower upper middle class people in my neighborhood. But travel, that's the only thing I didn't really do when I was a kid. And now I know how much you need to travel, and how to do it cheaply. So the thing. So I'm not motivated by making a bunch of money. I'm motivated by is creation. I'm motivated by having a name. A lot of people say, "Oh, you want to be famous? Try being rich first." I'm like, no. I'm gonna say that because you don't experience the positives of what it's like to be welcome because the way you want to do it is not the right way. But there's a lot of positives that come with being welcomed and being a trusted human. I mean, you don't have to be famous, but you need to be known for being constructive and useful and having insights, and that opens up a lot of opportunities. If people don't know who you are, how they gonna approach you with opportunities? That's why like I've been meaning to like really put the effort in looking for speaking, but speaking gigs find me. How many
Yeah.
podcasts I've reached out and said, "Oh, you should have me on the podcast." Yours is probably one of three I can think of, and really one of
Wow.
two. Okay, because they find me because I've done a good
Mhm.
job of doing this because I know that's currency. So,
Yeah.
but to answer the question after giving all that background, is, you want to know what's important to you, not important because you see somebody else done it, or not important because it was said, and then live unapologetically towards fulfilling that. At the end of the day, you're the only one that lives your life. Now, if you're
Mhm.
happy, if you're legitimately happy doing whatever you're doing, by all means, keep doing it. Uh, but if you feel
Right.
like you need to change, look into it. If you don't, it's cool because that's the other thing too. 'Cause I'm not the
Mhm.
workaholic dude, right? So this is coming from somebody who's like, I don't know if there's a middle between type A and type B, but if it exists, I would like to think I'm there, maybe a little closer to type A, but not much more. There's this stigma that like hustle culture and workaholics get, but them I mean if you got to pick one, I would not want to be fucking broke and bummy. I've been that. I can tell you what
Yeah.
that's like. I've been
Yeah.
the other side. This is much better in
Mhm.
every conceivable way. So,
Facts.
but to go to the extreme, you got to decide if that makes you happy, if that makes you
Mhm.
fulfilled, if that's what you want. Now, if it's not what you really want, shit, man. Look, like I tell people all the time, if I never made more than I made last year ever again, okay, I'd wonder how that's possible, sure, but I'm not gonna be like depressed about it. All
Yeah.
that means, and really the idea is to make it mostly passive, though I would like to get to that point by having had an impact. It's not about just making money, but I don't think you can make a lot of money without having an impact either. So I don't. So there's that.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, but how does for somebody, let's say they're early to mid, well, let's not go with early. Let's say they're in their mid 20s. How can
Mhm.
you kind of get clear on what it is that you want? Because that's I was talking to Steven Story a while back, and he basically said something along the lines of because I felt like I was missing out on stuff. He was like, "Dog, like the life you're living." I remember what we were talking about a couple years ago. Like your mind would be blown right now, and it was because you stopped trying to chase multiple rabbits. Instead, you just went after this one thing, and now look what you're living now. So what would you speak on as far as like the guys maybe 25, 26, 27 years old, skilled up, maybe he's got a little bit of money, but like how can he get clear on what he genuinely wants? And like I already know what you're going to say, but like what would you recommend for somebody that has working a regular job, doesn't really live that much of an exciting life, but he feels drawn to writing and maybe having a personal brand and he has different topics that he's passionate about. How could he get really clear on what he wants instead of looking on Instagram and being like, oh, that's what success is?
Well, you got to experience it. Like for example, man, I thought I wanted to live outside of the United States, so I went
Hmm.
and experienced it, and I reached the conclusion that I would like to be able to go out of the United States whenever I want to, even for extended periods of time. But I don't see the benefit for what's important to me of living
Hmm.
in another country, at least not yet. That may change with the
Right.
the community I'll be able to build and get into. But I had to experience that. I mean, likewise on the flip end, I used to think cruises and all inclusive resorts were just these overindulgent places where all people did was drink and eat food, get fat, and it was silly. I would much rather be in the country, hosteling it up, or staying with a family. And I had done none of this, but I thought that. And then I started
Hmm.
doing. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And you're exposed to the culture just as much if you go stay
Yeah.
at a resort. Well, you got to go out of your way, but point is, it exists. So experience lets you find these things out. And there's also this bit of honesty, like I know I ain't never gonna get on a motorcycle. I'm just not built for it. I ain't got it in me, and I say that without pride or shame. It's just not a thing I'm ever going to do, right?
Yeah.
But I have the same approach to alcohol. I go, that's just not going to be my thing. I don't have what it takes to be a drinker and and to go after it and do my life. And to me, it's a choice. It's one or the other. So I
Yeah.
decided I wanted this, so I gave that up, and it's changed my life. You have to experience these things, and you got to put yourself in a position to experience them. That's the other big part. Is I talk to a lot of guys, and they sour grape a lot of things. There's a difference between saying I don't want that versus I'm not capable of getting it. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So like now I can say there are a lot of things that I don't want. Now I never saw a grape that I always was like, I don't know, but I know not everyone can do that. But
Yeah.
put yourself in a position to do it. Make the money, take the trip, do the thing. See if you might you might think you want to work for yourself. Try it out. You might be like, holy shit, this is not like for whatever reason,
Yeah.
psychologically, financially, whatever. It might not be, but you only know if you try. And
Mhm.
life is short, but it's a lot longer than people give it credit
Yeah.
for. And so you got a lot of time to try things out. And you don't need that much time because there's certain things you're just not interested. Like for example, I know that I'm not gonna wake up anytime in this life, at least without something crazy happening, and be like, man, you know what? I want to try men out. I'm gonna try to date men. Like I know that's just not gonna happen. So I don't have to invest the time
Yeah.
trying it out. No. But I may very well wake up and decide that that I want to put my kids in a school for whatever reason, or I want to versus the plan right
Mhm.
now psychologically is to homeschool them. That could
Yeah.
happen. Try it out. Might hate it. Kid might hate it. I might hate it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Saying, I might, right now in my mind, I might think Italy is like, oh man, the Amalfi Coast. I really want to get there and see it. It looks great. I might get there and be like, yo, this is all effing hype. Instagram that
Yeah.
blew me up, man. But I only know if I try it.
Yeah.
So you try these things out. Don't be afraid to waste a little time figuring out what you love because you save a lot more time in the meantime. Yeah.
Well, that's something that really bothers me about some people because I'm just like, just try it. Just try it.
Yeah.
You have all these what ifs, what if, what if. Oh yeah, I should have, could have, would have. But like, if you just sit there and take the time to try it, as an example, whatever during the whole lockdown nonsense, I spent like 9 months in Qatar, and I was actually planning on living there. But some other little nonsense things were happening that they were going to like require certain things. Not going to say it for keywords. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go check out South America. And the point of me telling you that is I was one of those people that said, I'm never going to South America. There's no reason for me to go to South America. It's dangerous. It's this, it's that. Anyways, told my girls, like, quit your job. We're going to Brazil. It's one of the only places that's semi open. We went there, stayed there for like 3.5 months. Or no, it was 3 months. Went from there, went to Costa Rica. Didn't like it. I think it was because I was in the capital city. I was told I need to go to the mountains and beach and all that's way better. So I need to go back at some point. Then we lived in, what was it, Colombia for like 3.5 months, Mexico for about 3 or 4 months. Now here we are in Paraguay. And South America is now my home base. If I would have never experienced it, I would have just bought into, oh, yep, South America, it's like super dangerous. No reason to go there. I never would have experienced it. I've met quite a few of my like friends here, like Lawrence King is one guy that I've met since coming here. I've like built up a network of guys I would have never, ever, ever met if I didn't just get on the plane and check it out. So
Right.
you have to take that initial step and try it. I love South America. I'm looking at trying to get some of my family down here. They're still like, oh no, it's dangerous. And what my mom actually, I was trying to get her to come out. She was like, where is that in Africa? And I was like, no, it's in South Paraguay's in South America. They're like, nobody's heard of it.
That's funny, man.
So,
Dude, that's the key though, is
yeah.
put yourself in a position to try things
Mhm.
and then see what you want. Because what ends up happening, this is why I say, and I understand I'm writing from my own experience, but what else would I write from? Okay, this is
Right.
why I say that travel is one of the most motivating things you can do, because
Mhm.
you'll figure out that you really enjoy doing it, and then you go, okay, I need a plan to do more of this or to do it longer or whatever, and then that'll
Yeah.
really spurn get your wheels in motion.
for me, like as example from what you said, you were talking about how you always wanted to live outside of the U.S. So you realized actually, for what you want, it's better to live in the states, be able to travel. For me, I had this like idea going back all the way to like the Bold and Determined days. Like I was going to write a blog. I was going to live in Asia. I was going to be traveling every couple of weeks, and then I traveled for like 3 years, going from country to country, living in different countries for like a month, 2 months, 3 months, and one, it was cool. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to say I hated it. I'm super grateful, but I realized the amount of energy it would take, and then like I would build up a small network there, and then I leave, and I'm probably never going back. And then I go to the next place, start over, waste all that time, like 2 weeks, getting back in the routine, stay there for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and I go to another place. So the reason I've got like this apartment and I'm getting residency, doing all that stuff is I want an actual proper home base so that
Yeah.
regardless of where I travel, I can always come here. This is my, what is it? Mi casa. It's my house that I've got my stuff. I've got the studio here. I've got a good lawyer. I've got, I guess, friends group here. I'm familiar with it, but I can still go off and do the stuff I want to do in Dubai. I'm planning on going to Spain because we can get my girl set up there pretty easily. So like, I've got all these different places that I can travel. But now, after going out and experiencing the like constant travel lifestyle, for me, I want to spend like 3 to 6 months here, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months here, go here for a couple months. And then overall, Paraguay is going to be the home base. So the only way I was able to experience that was by me actually going out and trying it. And to be able to try that, you have to build up a skill set and all that. So I guess a good way to close this for anybody that's interested in getting into writing, getting into blogging, building a social media account, what can they get from you to actually start building that skill? Because you need the skill to be able to pay for the travel and fund the lifestyle that you want.
But I mean, right now, the biggest thing you can get from me is just look at my articles and check out the site and see what I'm doing and
Mhm.
writing, and eventually,
Okay.
I have some pretty cool offers coming that are going to work to teach the writing skills. I started doing them live, with the viral seminar, with the how to write viral thread seminar that went
Mhm.
better than apparently better than expected in terms of sales. So we'll just keep doing that, building on it. But yeah, and just build out these tools and stay in touch, and people will be able to see my education resources come along. And I've learned a lot, man. I'm
Mhm.
putting it in the use, how SEO works. It's a nightmare. But once you get it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, of course no one wants to do this, but it's so useful. That's kind of my
Yeah.
thought process. So yeah, right now nothing, but coming.
Okay. So everybody go to edlatimore.com. Just click all the links down in the description below. You can follow him on Twitter, Instagram, and check out his blog. That'll be down in the description. But thank you so much for spending this time with me, brother.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate that.
Always, brother.